there are so many assisted living homes, independent living homes, senior events that happen at community centers. It's a huge population. And I think I never thought about that as even being my audience. I kind of fell into it about 12 years ago. And what I found is that there's a humongous need for good entertainers in those places, and they will pay. They've got budgets for musicians.
Welcome to the Female Entrepreneur Musician Podcast with Bree Noble. Bree is a musician, entrepreneur, speaker, and founder of Women of Substance Music Radio and Podcast. Bree's interviews with successful female musicians and industry pros are both inspirational and informational. She also answers your questions about the music business. Bree is on a mission to help you create great music, connect with your fans, and grow your business, and to truly become a female entrepreneur musician.
Hey, this is Bree Noble, and I want to thank you so much for tuning into the Female Entrepreneur Musician Podcast. This is the show where we try to help you make great music, to connect with your audience, and to grow your business. And I know that this episode is going to do that for you. I am talking with artist Tara B. And in my conversation with her, it was like I was looking at myself in the mirror and talking to myself. We had so many similar experiences and kind of built our music careers in the same way. And I know you're going to benefit from all that she has to tell you, because she has had a lot of experiences and growth experiences and learning experiences that have gotten her to where she is today. And where she is today is she is doing very well, supporting herself on just her music. She is doing an incredible number of gigs every year, every month, every week. I mean, she's busy. And it's not like she's performing at the Whiskey A Go-Go or the Bluebird Cafe or the Bitter End. You know, they're not high profile gigs, but they are paying gigs. And these are people that are dying to hear her sing and call her back every year. So you are going to get some really great tips, some actionable tips from her. I am not going to dilly-dally in getting this show started. I have just gotten back from 3 weeks of vacation, 2 weeks in Maine with my family, and 1 week at a female entrepreneurship conference where I just learned so much, got refreshed, got connected to the women and some great mentors. And so I am ready to go, but boy, am I overwhelmed with the things I need to catch up on for Women of Substance, all our special shows, and this show, and for the Academy. And there's just so much going on, all great stuff, but it's a lot. So no more talking. We're going to get right to my interview with Tara B. Tara B is a professional singer, pianist, entertainer, vocal coach, composer, recording artist, voiceover talent, and public speaker. Wow. She's performed at such varied venues as Madison Square Garden in New York, many Minnesota wineries, the MPLS International Airport, and Burbank Senior Arts Colony. Tara books and manages about 200 concerts per year for her solo career, as well as for her duo, the BZ Girls. Her audience ranges from 4 to 100, but she specializes in the 40 and up crowd. I know you're really going to enjoy this candid and insightful interview with Tara B. So that's a little bit about Tara B. Tara, is there anything that you want to tell our listeners about you that maybe isn't in the bio, maybe something a little more personal?
Yeah, I know the bio is so much about my music, which is obviously a huge part of my life, but I am a girl who loves the outdoors. So summertime I'm loving right now, and anytime I can be outdoors when I'm not singing and doing musical related things, I love that. So even I actually just spent some time at our we call our North Shore in Minnesota, which is Lake Superior, and it's like our ocean. So anytime I can see stuff like that, it's great.
That's cool. Yeah, I've been to, I forget which Great Lake in Michigan, and I was amazed at how large they are. It does look like an ocean.
They really do.
It's crazy. That's not what we have here. I mean, we have tiny little lakes. In fact, our lakes are pretty much non-existent right now with the drought. We have one across the street from my house that I would call a pond, and now it is like a puddle. I mean, there's nothing left.
I'm sorry, but maybe we could send some of our water your
I
way.
really wish you could. We need it so badly.
Yeah.
Well, how'd you get started in music?
Well, I am from a musical family. I'm the youngest of three children, and my mom was, or is still, a choir director and organist and pianist. And so we had music all the time, whether it was like at church or in our home. And I started singing publicly with my family when I was about 6 years old. We were singing in little churches in Minnesota and actually little parts of Canada too. And so it's always been a part of me. I guess I never knew anything different.
Now, which part of Minnesota are you in?
Well, I live in the Twin Cities right now, the metro
Okay.
area, but I grew up in smaller towns. I was born in a small town in Minnesota. And so my early experiences was all more kind of central and northern Minnesota and small town.
Okay.
You know, I'm from one of those small little places.
My family is actually from a very small town in Minnesota called Reamer, Minnesota. It has like
Oh,
100 people.
awesome.
Have you ever heard of it? It's kind of
No,
near
but
like Walker,
oh,
kind of
Walker, I
that.
know where that is.
Yeah, it's not too far from
Oh,
Walker.
wow,
And
cool.
Ooding, as they say,
Yeah.
which I would say outing, but they say Ooding.
Sure. It's the short vowels of Minnesota.
Yes. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting to have a music career when you're in this area with just a bunch of small towns, because I think in some ways it feels hard, but in then other ways it's a little easier because
Right.
you can start out with a lot of venues and get your foot in the door and get practice performing
It's true.
in smaller places.
That's so true.
So what was it like being an indie artist in the 90s? Because, to me, nowadays it's really cool to be an indie artist and there's a lot of benefits to it. But in the 90s, nobody was really doing that. Everybody wanted a record deal. So what was your experience with that?
Well, for me in the 90s, I had just graduated college. I had my music degree, and I was actually part of a band back then with my brother and a couple other people. And it was hard. I mean, I had no clue what I was doing as far as I would book things because I understood a little bit about booking, but it was kind of hard to figure out what places to find and everybody, the people that had made it in music, you're right, it was always about a record deal. It wasn't, I don't know why, but nobody kind of told me or told us that there were other options. And so it was always kind of trying to figure out ways that you could get to talk to somebody that might be able to know somebody that could get you a record deal. But I will say, even though that was the case, and seriously, I was probably doing, I figured this out, maybe 25 gigs a year, where now it's so much more. But in that time period for me, what was good is that I was constantly listening to music. I was figuring out styles. It's like when you listen and listen, you get an idea of what this style is like or this style. And I think just that was like a decade for me of learning and honing my skills and vocally, and then even piano a little bit later too. So though I wasn't performing actually that much compared to now, it really, I think, set the stage for the skills that I now possess that makes performing easy.
I totally identify with that. And I think as I read your bio, I feel like we are twins from, across the country because
That's awesome.
we have a very similar experience. I graduated high school in 1990, graduated college in 94. And I wanted desperately to be in music also. And I just had no clue what to do. And I was trying and I was, singing at random weddings
Right.
and, just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it took me, like you said, 10 years to really figure out my niche, kind of where I should be and what my talents were and the people that liked what I did.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to get into more of, how you found that over time. Right now, do you consider yourself a full-time musician? Are you making a full-time income on music? Are you making a part-time and then supplementing it? Or do you have some music-related supplementing incomes or a completely unrelated supplementing income?
Right now, I actually am full-time. I have been I have been sometimes for some years, full-time. I mean, of the last 25 years kind of my adult life, I would say, been about 18 of those that I would consider it full-time, but that includes teaching as well as performing, but it's still music related. It's been in the last 5 years that it has switched from where my voice teaching, the lessons used to bring in more of the income, and now the gigs are doing that for me. So it's funny because every time I have people come up to me at a gig and they'll say, well, what do you do for a living? Or is this your living? I think they're always shocked that it is full time. And it's hard, but it's just, I think time.
Well, there aren't a lot of people that do. I mean,
True.
it's in a way hard for me to find people to interview for this show because a lot of times I'm looking for people that have a full-time income in music. And there aren't a lot. I mean, unless they're like, full-time touring on a record label kind of person.
Yep. I get that.
So can you kind of go over the streams of income that make up your income? Because, when I was doing music full-time, I had a whole bunch of different streams of income, including, and I'm thinking you do a lot of these too, and including I was being a demo singer for people and arranging and all kinds of, and teaching, like you said. So, what kind of makes up, and if you could give us like even some percentages, rough percentages.
Yeah, right now it's actually pretty simplified, if I want to put it that way. I would say probably 70% of what I make is on gigs, and probably another 20%, 25% on with teaching. And that can include private vocal lessons or classes that I teach. And then the last part is just maybe like CD sales, random things. So in the past, I have done, through the years, because I said 25 years of doing this, I did have definitely some jingle work for a while. That was kind of in the late 90s. And also singing backups on different CDs of other people. I'm trying to think what else there might have been. I can't think.
Now, I was looking at your website. Do you do like online music coaching or is it all like local?
It's local. I have just kind of honestly in the last couple of months set myself up for being able to do Skype and vocal lessons or, coaching people just even speaking wise with their voice. But that's something that's so new to me that I haven't necessarily generated income out of that yet.
I think that's a really cool thing to get into. I know some people that got coached that way, maybe even 10 years ago. And, to have access to somebody that's a really good coach that's not in your town. I mean, like, if you're in a tiny little town in Ohio or something, you're not going to find a good vocal coach. You're going to have to drive. And with Skype video, I mean, you can actually see, you can watch them. You can see what their body is doing, which is important. You can't just listen, right?
Right.
Yes.
And the other thing I've just kind of come up with too is I'm creating some YouTube videos of teaching where it's just short little segments, kind of the vocal tip for the day. And I haven't really gone into the whole monetization of videos yet. I'm learning about that. There's just so much to learn because I think there's a lot of avenues out there, but of streams of income, but it's kind of trying to figure it out and then learning it. I think growing up in kind of the, 70s, 80s, 90s, obviously I was just on the beginning of the computer. And so I find that so many people in their 20s seem so much more adept at different things that are online or, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I probably spent a year just studying on online and, what you can do to generate an income. And I think, like you said, from our era when, I remember being in junior high when I saw my first Macintosh, I mean, are we really that old? I guess we are.
I know.
But, you have to learn that stuff, but there is so much. And I think your idea about the videos is great. And to me, the monetization would be to drive people to some kind of coaching because, do you have your tips be free?
Right.
And then drive people to your coaching because I really think, and targeting parents. I mean, there are so many parents that have talented kids that don't know what to do to move them forward,
It's true.
So here, we're building your business for you.
Yes. Thank you.
So I want to ask you about your gigs because, 70% on gigs, that's really awesome, especially, we haven't really talked about like the styles that you do. And I find it interesting because it's similar to what I did as far as finding different niches that I could really book in. So, tell them, what most of your gigs are and kind of how you find them.
Okay. So I am a solo singer, but I also have a duo. And I would say I do about 200 concerts a year. About 150 of those are solo, 50 are with the BZ Girls, my duo. And the solo gigs, I have found this niche with senior citizens. And in Minnesota especially, but I know this is true all over the country because I lived in Los Angeles for a while and I did it there too. And there are so many assisted living homes, independent living homes, senior events that happen at community centers. It's a huge population. And I think I never thought about that as even being my audience. I kind of fell into it about 12 years ago. And what I found is that there's a humongous need for good entertainers in those places, and they will pay. They've got budgets for musicians. It's also daytime work, which is fabulous. Because now that I'm a little older, I don't always like being out, till 1 a.m. playing places. And so it's really a great income in that sense. The way that I started it and actually still do is just not random, but cold calling. And now with the internet, you can Google anything and find, I don't know in Minnesota, I haven't actually done the counting of it, but I probably play at, I would say maybe 70 different senior places right here in the metro area. And I don't play at all of them. So
that's a lot.
I know
oh
it
my
is.
Gosh.
And it's finding the ones that obviously will pay. I have a certain worth that I feel like, that I am and that I provide, but I have through the years too, you build relationships with people, those that are booking. And so even as I've raised fees, like last summer, I just raised fees a little bit and I really didn't lose. I maybe lost 2 places. So, it's something where it's ongoing. They have entertainment every month or every week. And so as I would cold call, then I would do follow-up calls. And I'm really big about follow-up and being persevering. I don't want to, tick people off. So I've kind of tried to, when I keep track of the places I'm calling, I'll try to maybe every 3 to 5 weeks call them if I haven't heard a no or if I haven't heard any kind of response from them. And that's just kind of how I've done it through the years. It seems to have worked pretty well.
That's a really good strategy. And I did the same. I sang at several different, and mostly because people found me. Like that's how I fell into it. Like people at my church, they loved what I did and they would call, you need to go here, you need to go there. And I started doing a lot of like the Federation of Women's Clubs. Have you sung at those?
Yeah, or auxiliary.
Yeah, because that's the same thing. They have to have entertainment every month.
Yes.
And so they're always looking for something. And then they like things with a theme and like, especially Christmas or, I did like a patriotic theme.
I just did about 4 of those last week. So it was,
oh my goodness,
but it's kind of awesome. It's again, and you kind of put these programs together and it's, you've got a program to do through the years. You can bring it back.
So we have a lot of struggling artists on the show, listening, trying to figure things out. And is there any time that you can remember that you felt really frustrated, you felt like you were hitting a wall and that you might want to give up on this, even though it was your dream? How did you push through that? If you could, just kind of give us a story or two in relation to that.
Yeah, I think every musician goes through frustrations, and weirdly so, I can't say that I ever felt like giving up. I think it's in my Brisky family or something that we are definitely perseverers. So I think that helped. But there was a time I think it was right around 1995, 96. And I was singing with this band with my brother and a few others. And things just weren't happening for us. Like we thought, we'd get a break somewhere. Like we sang at a music festival and we thought that would get all kinds of more gigs. It didn't. Nothing was really panning out. And there was kind of, I think, a feeling we had been together long enough where people kind of wanted to go different ways musically. And I knew that too, but it was just feeling frustrated by it, as well as the fact, and I'll just share this because this is a part of my story too. I'm still single in my 40s and I've been through a lot of heartache in love. And I had just gone through a breakup at that time too. So there was just a lot that felt, just really down, like, nothing's ever going to happen and life sucks, And, but I remember doing a concert around that time where it was some kind of contest. And so there were judges there. And one of the judges came up to me afterwards and just said, thank you for sharing part of your story, what you're going through, because your vulnerability spoke a ton. And it made me realize too, that even just those parts of us as an artist, that's important to people. It's how they connect with us. I don't think I realized how important that was probably until years later, but it was one of those pieces where someone encouraged me. So it encouraged me to keep going, like, oh, I have something to share with these people. I have something to offer. And I would just say that for anybody, even when they're coming against a wall, it's like and this is something I believe, even just because I'm a woman of faith, but I believe that when God gifts people, that those gifts are meant to be used. And so, if people are having gifts in music, there is a niche for them. I really believe there's a niche. I used to have the scarcity thinking, but I have more abundant thinking now, where it's like, it's just trying to find it. And it might take a long time, but there's different ways. I mean, even at that point when my band broke up and I was kind of going as a solo artist and kind of going, what style do I want to do? Do I want to do this? I don't really know. Like it was years really before I found that niche of what I'm doing now. But it, just in that moment of someone encouraging me, it helped me to go on and realize that I could.
I love that. I love that. So on that note, can you tell us about a mentor that you've had and how, they affected you and what you learned and how you put that into practice?
I never have had a specific mentor. And as I talk with a lot of other musicians, they usually don't either. I mean, like a specific person, but I have had mentors in other way, as in when I read books about people and their lives, like it's inspiring. I mean, not even necessarily musicians. This probably sounds crazy, but like when I was growing up, I read all the Little House on the Prairie books, and they were pioneers and they persevered through things. And then, I read through other people's bios through the year. I remember even reading about like the opera singer Renee Fleming, and I read a little bit about Julie Andrews, and just when I read about other people's lives, it inspired me to keep on going. You know what I mean? And,
oh yeah.
And then I also had two very distinct things said to me. My fourth grade teacher, who I don't know that she was like the best teacher, but she really thought that I had special gifts. And so she said to me, Tara, I just think you can do anything you want with your life. Now, granted, that may not be true, but it's the fact that she said it, I was impressionable. I was fourth grade. And it encouraged me, like that has never left me, that I'm capable. And then my college voice teacher was kind of the same way, where she just said, I'm not going to try to put you in a box of where your music is or what your voice is like. She said, I want you to just explore anything. Just explore it, see what happens. And I think those two pieces have just kept me going, to realize that I have a gift. I'm going to keep using it. And again, like I say, these other books that I've read along the way of people that have inspired me. There have also been just random friends here and there that, the times when I'm down, they'll just say, no, you've got a gift. Just keep going, keep going. So it hasn't been maybe a specific person, but from many different sources, I've had a lot of encouragement. I really have. I feel very blessed that way.
Yeah, I think we need that. I mean,
Yeah.
It's hard to keep going sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So surrounding yourself with people that are encouraging, I think, is super important.
Yeah.
So what do you believe makes you unique as an artist?
I think I have finally found a niche of singing these old jazz tunes, old Broadway, and in a style that's also kind of an old school style. My voice too is what I've learned through the years, that it just fits those. It's a little more lilting. It's clear. I mean, it's got some warmth in it, but it tends to fit those styles really well. And I think that uniqueness of doing that, also playing piano, because I'm an instrumentalist as well, and my keyboard skills are really comparable to my voice. I've kind of honed both through the years. And I've been playing piano since I was 3 years old, so I'm sure that's helped. But I think just finding those songs like that connect with me, connect with my voice, and then the audience, the senior audience, so much of what I do, it all works together. It's their eras. It's the things they grew up with. So it's without really trying to, that's kind of where I've gone in and felt comfortable. And I really love learning about these old composers like Irving Berlin and Cole Porter and Gershwin, and I'm able to share pieces of their history as well at gigs, and all of that together, it just works, with the audience.
Oh my gosh, I can see why they love you. I mean, that's like, seriously, they love that kind of stuff. They love remembering those old songs. They love hearing about the composers, and just brings back great memories. That's such a great niche that you have.
Well, and I have to say this too, Bree, that when I first started doing it, even up till honestly just a few years ago, I would get kind of apologetic when people would say, well, who do you sing for? And I'd say, well, seniors. And it's almost like I was trying to find a way to apologize as though they weren't worthy, of having someone come sing for them. And I just think they just happen to be an older part of the population. They have stories themselves. The one beautiful part even about singing for them is sometimes I'll get to talk afterwards with them at a gig. And they have stories like from World War II or, some other just amazing things. It's like these people are full of history. And so I'm so grateful now that I kind of stumbled on it before, and now it's become such a part of my life. I really have a deep respect.
That's so true. I mean, we're going to be seniors eventually. And then, there's going to be some singers coming singing Madonna and Lady Gaga and Nirvana and stuff to us in the old folks' home.
True. I know they're going to have to shift the music, newer. That's funny.
That's funny. Well, so what has been your most mind-blowing experience? Like the one where you're just like, oh my gosh, pinch me. I can't believe I'm doing this.
Okay. I had actually two, but one was in 1997. A very last minute, a gentleman from my church at the time, his mother was doing some big like Christian women's event in New York City. And it was at Madison Square Garden Theater. And why they asked me to sing at it, I'm still like, I don't know, because there were two other women that sang there. One was a woman who was well known in New York. I don't remember her name. And the other was a lady by the name of Esther Hines. She was an opera singer who was pretty well known at the time, worldwide. And I'm thinking, and me? Why am I going to be there? But anyway, they flew me out. And I'll never forget just being on stage at Madison Square Garden Theater. It was, packed place, and I'm singing. And again, I'm just kind of like, what am I doing here? I'm a small town Minnesota girl. And so it was just a really cool moment. And then the other moment that happened for me where I was like pinching myself was not performing. But when I lived in Los Angeles a few years ago, I was able to teach some classes for Disney corporate. They offer any kind of classes to their employees. And I was teaching some performance and voice classes. And it was more about just that when I came onto the grounds of Disney and saw the Disney signs and my little badge, and on my room, it had my name and Disney symbols around it. And it just felt so surreal because as a child, I used to watch The Wonderful World of Disney. And here I was, so that was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. How'd you get that gig?
One of my friends, when I moved to Los Angeles, I had met a friend through a friend, and she worked for Disney, and she had heard about the classes. So she basically just gave me the name of the woman who booked the classes, and I called her and gave her all my information, and she took a chance on me. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell us about your most recent projects. What are you working on right now, and how's that going over with your current audience, or are you building a new audience with that?
Well, and I don't know if you want me to talk about my duo at all, because that's kind of
go for it.
So I'm part of a duo called the BZ Girls, and I met, the B is for Tara B, the Z is for Carol Z. It's my friend. She and I met up at a songwriters group about 6 years ago. We have very different styles, and she's got a very low, deep voice. She plays guitar. But what we found out when we started singing together was just our voices, for some reason, match and blend and work well. And we've just found a lot of commonality as friends. And we weren't like planning on starting a duo, but we just said, hey, let's start singing together. And now we sing for people. I guess our audience is probably about like a 40s to 60s. And usually we actually have a lot of wineries in Minnesota, believe it or not. And
I had no idea.
Yeah, there's like, I don't know, maybe 70 by now. They just keep popping up. Yeah, they have what's called Minnesota, the university developed cold climate grapes. So they can withstand our winters. But it's kind of become popular for people to go around to wineries and do wine tastings. And we found that niche when I moved back here from Los Angeles. I had kind of heard of it and I just Googled and started booking those places. And so it's really been a cool matchup for Carol and I, or the BZ Girls, just being able to sing at so many outdoor things. I mean, we've sung at other events too, but the wineries have been kind of a mainstay for us.
And what's your style? Is it like folk or jazz? Or?
It's a little combination of, we do a little bit of classic jazz because we, from my experience, and she's done a little bit of that. But then we do, I'd almost call it maybe more of a pop folk rock because we do some things of like the 70s or 80s. And then also today, like we do a Bruno Mars song or Colby Collet. But then we're both songwriters. So that is a blend of sort of pop and Carol's might be a little more closer to R&B, a little more soulful than mine. So it is kind of eclectic in some ways, but I think what we found our niche too is that just two women singing together and our blend with our voices we kind of figured this out that, hers is lower, mine's higher. And where the most like sweet sounds of our voice are about a third apart. So it's like perfect for harmonies.
It sounds like the Indigo Girls to me. I mean, you think about their voices.
That's true. And we get that. Like we have totally different voices, but when we blend together, it really can sound as one. And I'm so grateful for that.
That's awesome. So with your audiences that you have, especially with the older audience and stuff, do you promote and get fans online, or do you mostly doing, person to person with gathering fans?
With the senior gigs, it's pretty much just person to person, concert to concert. The beautiful part is, I think that anytime you're gigging, it's another advertisement for another concert. And that's happened often to me where I'm singing at a senior place. It may not even be the seniors themselves. It might be their son or daughter who happens to be there that day saying, hey, do you do these kind of events? Do you do this? And they'll take my business card. So word of mouth, and them having seen me, it's gotten me a lot of other gigs as well. And with the BZ Girls, we do a lot of online, like on Facebook, a lot of promotion there because people are online, and it's great. Right. I think of the days when I used to have to send out postcards in the mail and how expensive that was.
Yes, I know. So what are the best online places for you, the BZ Girls, to promote right now?
We have our website, which is thebzgirls.com, and then our Facebook page, which is also just the BZ Girls. And I think Facebook page is probably the one that we're constantly doing stuff on and advertising, and we have our schedules on both, but that's probably.
And you get engagement on Facebook?
We do, and partly too because not just our page, but when we've shared the BZ Girls pages on our personal pages. Carol's in a couple of other groups as well, so there's with two of us too, there's a lot broader audience as far as numbers of people that we can share that with, as far as friends that we.
Yeah, I think that helps.
Yeah. So
more people.
Yeah. And then,
so
sorry,
go ahead.
And I was thinking again, word of mouth, because it's funny, even at these wineries, there's plenty of people that don't know us, and then they'll hear us and they'll ask like, well, hey, are you singing at more of these? And that's why I still think that gigging itself does promote you. Like if you're just sitting home, you're probably not going to get as much people or, as many people coming to a concert. But if you're out there doing it, you're going to build a fan base that way.
Oh, totally agree. And, always have, like you said, business cards or I always used flyers because they're bigger and people don't lose them.
Right.
And, I always mention it at the end of my show, and I have them on my table right next to the CDs. And that,
we do too.
And I'm sure you experienced this too, but that's how I got 80% of my gigs after my first year.
Mm-hmm. I know, because people, they take it.
And they're excited when they're there. They're excited about it. They usually take several because they want to give them to certain people they're thinking of, or other churches or people that, and it comes to mind too that maybe people don't know that don't perform at these kind of like, senior events or women's events or whatever. There's always somebody who's in charge of entertainment at those things, and they're dying for people to call them. Like they don't want to have to go do research to find someone.
So true.
If they find them, then they're super happy about it.
It's
so
true. That's a great point, because I've had people do that. Like, we were just looking for someone, for the next event or something. And yeah, it's great. It really is.
And a lot of times it's not their forte. Like they've been given this job, but they don't know how to find entertainment. And so they're just so happy when you happen upon them.
Right? That's true. It's true.
So do you have a book that you would recommend to people, either about the music business, about songwriting, or even about maybe, something for self-improvement or empowerment?
One of the books that really, two books stuck out to me. I read them about the same time, but the first one is called The Introvert Advantage. I think the author is Laney is her last name, Laney. I can't think of her first name, but I'm an introvert, and I know actually a lot of musicians are, and I think people don't realize that because they think since we're in front of people and we're social that we're extroverted. But I think what I learned through that book was just finding my strengths as an introvert and how that really can apply to a music career. In fact, I really recognize that some of those things that, I'm sure you know this too, that it's like the daily stuff that has to get done, whether it's emails or invoices or, putting together, I don't know, just all the background stuff, I call it, or even putting together a set of your music, like figuring order programs. Those
all
things,
the administrative stuff.
and the stuff that you kind of do by yourself, even practicing, you do it by yourself a lot. And all those things, it's like, well, it's never seemed that weird or hard to me. And I realize that's partly from being that introvert where I don't have to be around people all the time. Although I love people, I just feel, more alone. And that book kind of gave me permission to do that. So I loved it. And then the other book I read, which is more about music, it's by a man named Roger Love. I think he actually does a lot of voice work with different stars out in LA. But his book that I read is called Set Your Voice Free. And that gave me a whole new world, not just into the singing voice, but to the speaking voice as well. So it even gave me ideas as far as generating income of not just singing, but what can I do with my speaking voice?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. I want to mention about the introvert book.
Mm-hmm.
I was discussing this with someone the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting how, as musicians, sometimes we feel so comfortable to talk on stage,
Mm-hmm.
but yet if we walked into a room of people we didn't know, we would feel totally uncomfortable. Like we don't have that, cocktail party kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what being an introvert is about. I'm not an introvert, but I'm more toward the middle of the spectrum.
Sure.
But I could say anything mostly on stage,
Mm-hmm.
but walk into a room of people I don't know, I'm completely intimidated by that.
I know. And me too. It's, in fact, usually what I'll do in those cases is just kind of go around the sides of the room and kind of look for people who are either by themselves or not kind of the life of the party. I'll usually try to go for the quieter ones, and then I'll start a conversation.
Right. Yeah. I'm that more one-on-one,
Yeah.
like for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And, so that kind of comes up for me at music conferences and stuff or business conferences, because I'm just not one to like, hey, I'm here, walk into the room and just start something up.
Right.
So,
well, and I was going to say too, the cool part about that though, is even in concert, like, why can we do it in concert? For me, when I'm at a concert, I'm actually looking at it like having a conversation with a person. Like I'm not seeing, I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm not like seeing a ton of people. I'm more thinking like, how would I converse with them one-on-one? Because that's what I can do. Like that's what I'm comfortable with. So sometimes, I'll ask questions to the audience or just something that it's more like a conversation versus, I'm the one here in front of you. And I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Because, for a business term, you'd say, you want to talk to your avatar or your perfect fan or something. You want to think about, instead of just this sea of people that's all different, you can't talk to them all, right? So just think about talking to your biggest fan.
That's great.
How would you talk to them?
Yeah. That's a great visual.
Awesome. Well, I can't believe it. We are almost done with this interview, but I want to first give you a chance to let people know how to get in touch with you and online, or where are you ever going outside of Minnesota for concerts these days, or are you mostly in Minnesota?
Wisconsin a little.
Okay.
It's not
venturing out to the next door state.
Midwest. Yeah. We don't have any plans yet in BZ Girls 2, and I haven't necessarily. I don't know what the future will hold. There's a lot in store and possibilities, but yeah, it's right now in Minnesota. Best way probably to get a hold of me is my website. It's www.tarabrueske.com, but it's spelled TARABRUESKE. It looks like brewski. And on my website, I have links for my YouTube page. I have links for our BZ Girls website, Facebook, so that's a really great place to. Yeah.
And check out her vocal tips, because I saw you did something about breathing on there, and it sounds like you're going to be adding some more.
I am. Yeah. So I'm kind of, there's always a lot obviously to keep up online, but I'm trying to keep my website as at least you can find the links on there to my other pages, if you can't find that. So,
right. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad that I got in touch with you. Like I said, I feel like we were on an extremely similar journey.
I love that
over the years. Yeah, I know. And so it's great to talk to somebody because I felt the same way about I perform at, for seniors, but I love them and they love me. So why shouldn't I talk about that?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on this show. I just think what you're doing is an amazing gift to other musicians who are out there. And I'm sure it has encouraged them. Just the shows I've listened to of yours, I think they're awesome. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Now go out and make great music, connect with your fans, and grow your business. Female Entrepreneur Musician has been brought to you by FEM20.com and FemaleMusicianAcademy.com. With editing by Jen Eads of 317 Sound Design and music by Stella Ronson.